20th century clairvoyant, mystic, and researcher Manly Palmer Hall prophetically explores the secret destiny of America in his book, drawing on references to Egyptian pharaohs and Greek philosophers. This passage comes from chapter 3, Westward Ocean Travel to the Earthly Paradise. The ancient Greeks had a far better knowledge of geography than popular opinion today indicates. We have been deceived as to the full measure of classical learning because the Greeks did not commit the larger part of their knowledge to writing, and they bound scholarship with the vow of secrecy. In ancient days, all learning was regarded as sacred. Wisdom was entrusted to the keeping of priest philosophers, and they were permitted to communicate the choicest branches of the sciences only to duly initiated pupils. To bestow knowledge upon those who had not prepared their minds by years of discipline and self-purification profaned the mysteries, desecrated the sacred sciences. Some years ago, in discussing this fine point in ethics with the late Professor James Breasted, the most distinguished of American Egyptologists, he confirmed my own findings, and further stated it to be his personal conviction that the classical civilizations concealed most of their learning under legends, myths, and allegories, and these have long been mistakenly accepted as the literal beliefs of these peoples. There can be no doubt that the existence of a great continent in the Western Hemisphere was known to the ancient Greeks, and also to the Egyptians and the Chinese. It is nothing short of foolish to assume that the ancients lacked ships sufficiently seaworthy to navigate the larger oceans. Long before the Christian era, the older civilization had constructed boats far larger and more seaworthy than any of the vessels used by Columbus. One of the Ptolemies of Egypt built a ship large enough to have an orchard of fruit trees on the deck, together with swimming pools and fountains stocked with live fish. Calculations based upon Plutarch's description of ancient voyages seem to indicate that the Greeks not only reached the coast of America, but explored the St. Lawrence River and part of the Great Lakes area. Plato, in his treatise on the destruction of Atlantis, wrote that due to the commotions in the ocean caused by the submergence of a vast continent, all navigation to the west ceased for a long period of time. This statement can only imply that such navigation had taken place in remote times. Greek mythology perpetuates the knowledge of a blessed land beyond the western boundaries of ocean. In this blessed land dwelt the Hesperides, the beautiful daughters of night, and here also at the end of each day the sun came to rest. In popular mythology, the Hesperic Isles were a kind of terrestrial paradise. Thus, under a thin veil of mystic symbolism was concealed the account of a western continent of great size, fertile and rich and abounding in all good things. The ancients believed the earth to be surrounded by the sphere of the constellations, and they assigned to each country the star groups which were above that country's particular area of land. In the arrangement preserved in the writings of Aratus of Soli, the constellation of the eagle spreads its wings across the North American continent. The serpent winds its coil over Mexico and Central America, and the dragon floats in the sky above Japan and China. Perhaps Sir Edward Landseer was not far wrong when he declared that the symbols of nations and the emblems peculiar to their heraldry originated in their ruling constellations. Just about everyone knows that the constellation of the Great Bear is in the sky over Russia, and since time immemorial, the bear that walks like a man has been the accepted symbol of the Russian state. Thus, in many ways, we discover indications that the old races were wiser than we thought, and that what we have called discoveries are really only rediscoveries. Beyond the western bounds of the ocean, they located the fair land set aside by the gods to be the earthly paradise. Here, in the fullness of time, all men would come in search of the Golden Fleece, which hung upon the tree, sacred to the apples of the sun. And the early explorers did travel to the west in search of a Golden Fleece, the gold of the Incas, the treasures of the Aztecs, and the jeweled temples of the 7 cities of Cibola. It was in an old book, which is in the British Museum, that I found another and even more important key to the meaning of the Golden Fleece. It was known to the Greeks that the Golden Fleece was in reality a parchment on which was written the secret of human immortality. It was this parchment that Jason sought, for whoever discovered it would gain the secret of enduring empire and power over the whole world. We have now in America, enshrined in the Congressional Library, a Golden Fleece, the American Declaration of Independence, written on the skin of an animal and preserved as the magic formula of human hope. Those who understand it and can use wisely the import of its writings are possessed of the secret of the immortality of human society. The curious fortunes of war brought another Golden Fleece from across the sea, and it is now preserved together with our own. This second parchment is the Magna Charta, the English Bill of Human Rights, which was the inspiration behind our American Declaration of Independence. These two immortal documents together form the Declaration of the Rights of Man and are the basic texts of modern democracy. By the wisdom, then, of those gods who are eternally vigilant over the needs of man, the blessed lands of the West were set apart. For none of the great civilizations of the past rose in North America to overshadow the continent with the ruins of old tradition, or to set up the corruptions of old administrative policy. Foreign nations came to this continent in times long ago, but they formed no permanent settlements nor attempted any program of colonization. And so the soil was not impoverished by thousands of years of intensive cultivation, nor were the natural resources ravished to supply the substance to maintain endless wars and ageless feuds. It was the rise of the democratic dream in Europe that supplied the beginning of Western civilization. Those in search of a promised land turned to the West. Here was a virgin continent populated only by nomadic Indian tribes, a vast territory suitable in every way for the great human experiment of the democratic commonwealth. By the 19th century, the American Hesperides was definitely the land of golden opportunity, and to it came streams of immigration from nearly every country on the earth. The better way of life drew them here, for it had been established that here men could build a future free of tyranny, intolerance, and enforced poverty. Here all were given opportunity for education, for free enterprise, and living a life according to the dictates of hope and conscience. If, in a comparatively short time, many racial streams have met and mingled, and a new race has been born, the American race is not one to be determined by an analysis of blood or the proportions of the cranium. Americans are a race determined by the measure of a conviction, set apart by that conviction. It is the conviction that human beings are created free and are entitled to equal opportunity to perfect themselves in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in recent years, we have made another discovery. It is that the race of democracy is one distributed throughout the whole world. Among men and women of all races and all nations are those who share our conviction, and because they share it, they are of our kind and belong to our race. In this realization, we mark the beginning of world democracy. Wise men, the ancients believed, were a separate race, and to be born into this race, it was necessary to develop the mind to a state of enlightened intelligence. The old philosophers taught that physical birth is an accident, for men are born into various races and nationalities according to the laws of generation. But there is a second birth, which is not an accident. It is the consequence of a proper intent. By this second birth, man is born by enlightened intelligence out of nation and out of race into an international nation and an international race. It is this larger and coming race that will someday inherit the earth. But unless a man be born again by enlightenment, he shall not be a part of the philosophic empire. Our age of gold will pass, and someday the golden age will come again. A future greatness is right now casting its long shadow across the face of nature. With each passing generation, the responsibilities of the American people will increase. More and more we shall be looked to as a source of courage, strength, and hope. And it will be in this way that we shall fulfill the destiny for which our nation was created by dreamers of long ago. From the blessed isles of the West must come the fulfillment of the promise of the ages.